Hey, what's going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here to break down the 4-game Call of Duty main set on Friday. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports, daily fantasy sports slates, esports, including Call of Duty, League of Legends, and CSGO. Also, I just wanted to say again, thank you for all support. We are now at 3.5 thousand subscribers. If you enjoy all this free content, if you leave a like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell. Those things do really help me out to continue to grow my YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast, a 5-star rating and review would be greatly appreciated there. It's just the DK DFS show. The link is in the description below. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So really excited to talk about some Call of Duty. We got back-to-back weekends of COD, which is always great. If you're tilting PGA DFS like me currently, because it's Xander Schauffele, then you're someone that's probably excited to look at something new here. So yeah, really excited to get back to some Call of Duty. So let me go ahead and switch over now to the spreadsheet I made for you guys. Should be good now. I actually have to move my screen over to the right. Hold on. There we go. All right, that should be good now. Let me just confirm that. All right, looks pretty good. Okay, so if you guys are new to Call of Duty DFS as an esport, right, this is your first time, how it works is they're best of 5 series, and there's a rotation every time. It goes, there's 3 game modes played, so it's Hardpoint, Search and Destroy, Domination, Hardpoint, and then Search and Destroy. The games that players score the most are Hardpoint and Domination. And the key thing is that this makes it a little bit different than other esports is there's no round sweep bonus or maps not played bonus. So if a team wins 3-0, that's not good because you miss out on 2 games and most importantly that second hardpoint or that 4th game in the rotation. So it's really key to try and avoid 3-0s. Now, if you look at the odds in this slate, there are definitely some games that look potentially could go 3-0, right? You have Dallas minus 700 favorites. You have London are minus 300 favorites, New York minus 500, and Florida minus 360, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think they should be higher, to be honest. Optic Gaming bringing in 2 subs. Yeah, so really, I mean, I think there's worry for every single game, a potential 3-0 sweep. So personally, how am I going to attack it? I'm just not going to worry about it. If I play a player that is in a game at 3-0s, then that's unfortunate. But when all the games have a chance to blow out, I'm not going to really put too much focus on that, right? So I'm just going to play the players that I think are the best players. If that game goes 3-0, that's unfortunate for me. But that's personally how I'm going to attack it. Now, again, if you wanted to maybe play a slightly safer route, you could target the games that are projected to stay the closest, right? So right now, that London-Seattle game would projected to stay the closest game. But again, really, I think you can make an argument for any game that could blow out here, or go 3-0. And like I said, the hardpoint and the domination games are the ones that are key. So it's always important to get at least that 4th map or that second hardpoint. As long as you get that, you're in pretty good shape. The last game, S&D, is a game that players don't score a lot of fancy points in, maybe 10 to 15 points at most. So it's really not that important. But yeah, so let's go over some of the stuff I included here in my spreadsheet. So obviously you got the team, the salary on Draftkings, the Vegas odds, which I talked about already, the overall KD. So this is what I want to focus on a lot, overall KD. For scoring on DraftKings is 2 points for a kill, 1 point -1 for a death. So really the KD is what you want to focus on the most. I included the overall deaths and overall kills too. Just so you can kind of see who is, more of a, I guess, aggressive player, right? Who's in more gunfights compared to other teammates. Now again, it can be a little bit skewed. Some players are newer, right? They haven't played the whole season, but wanted to include that data in there. I included the average hill time, which is the hardpoint hill. Not a whole, you don't really want to put a lot of focus on this, but you do get one or 0.1 points for every second you're in there. So on average, players will get about 5 points a game. Again, that's not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. Plants per game for Search and Destroy, it is +3. So you can kind of see, teams who the bomb carriers are, right? So a guy like Zed averaging 1.14 plants per game. Normally, teams will have their designated bomb carrier. So that is a slight boost, right? A guy like Shotzzy's, who's kind of the do-it-all guy, averages 2 plants a game. That's an extra 6 points. That's pretty good. Again, 0, 1.43. Mac Melts, you can see, for some reason, normally, I would say the more OBJ players, not the best or not the best players, are the bomb planners, but it's kind of a little bit different here with New York, right? And Dallas. Mac Melts and Shotzzy are their 2 bomb carriers. Again, you can see Saints is the bomb carrier here, so included that data in there. Caps per domination, I believe it's 1 point per cap. So again, about average 5 points there, not a whole lot. And then I included the last column here, their recent KD and the most recent tournament played. So I wanted to include that too, kind of give you an idea of who's in good form right now. So if we look at it, right, a guy like Wuskin played really well last tournament, 1.29 KD. A guy like Octane, but he's always, up there in kills. Right, the whole New York team played really well because they won the tournament. But Mac especially, again, 1.22 KD last tournament. Kind of surprising, but Blast had a good tournament there, 1.17. And then you can see the whole Optic Gaming team was terrible. They were all awful. Dashy and Chino especially are bad. But that's another thing I wanted to bring up. Again, Optic Gaming are subbing out Dashy and Chino. They have not included Hollow or Draza in the player pool yet. So be careful. Do not play Dashy or Chino. They are not playing this weekend. So I'm interested to see when Draftkings, or even if they will include prices there for Hollow and Draza. I do want to mention, substitute players this season have been pretty good. Mac Melts was a sub. He's arguably the best player right now in Call of Duty. Awakening was a sub. Again, arguably, top 5 player right now in Call of Duty. So, if they're at really cheap price points, Hollow and Draza, again, I don't know anything about them. They've been playing in the amateur league. But I don't think you rule those guys out, right? Especially if they're really cheap. I wouldn't hate taking a shot there. And then, obviously, a guy like Skies looked really good the last tournament. Florida's been on fire, though. 1.43 KD, which is just insane. Now, I do want to bring up, he's a guy that at times will not be in the most gunfights, right? Sometimes he'll be holding spawns or, playing a position that is not getting a whole lot of kills. But the last tournament, he absolutely slayed out. So let's now start with the first game here. I got included this in order of the games played. So we have Paris-Dallas is the first game. Again, Paris plus 400 dogs. The biggest underdogs of the slate. I think there's only one guy, once again, that I'm interested in, and that's Dens. Coming in at 7.4K. He has a 1.14 overall KD. He had a 1 KD last tournament. Paris has really been struggling. They have not been playing good. Yeah, there's no reason for me to get to Luca at 9.4K. That doesn't make any sense. I think it's Dens, and that's it. And am I even going to play him at 7.4? Probably not, unless I'm going to game stack in Paris-Dallas. But yeah, I really don't like a whole lot here. Again, Dens, if you made me pick, he'd be the guy I would play, but I still don't think I'm going to go there. Now let's talk about the Dallas side. So, again, the worry is they are the biggest favorites of the day. They have the best chance to sweep. I think that's going to lower the ownership, though. We saw it, like a month ago when it was FaZe versus Seattle, right? And you had everyone on FaZe low owned. You had Octane like 10% owned because everyone thought it was going to 3-0. And it went 5 games. And that was the game you wanted to stack, right? I think like winning lineup had 2 players from FaZe and then Octane in it. So really anything can happen here. But yeah, let's talk about their players here. So Clayster at 7.6, Crimsix at 6.4, Hook at 8K, Illy at 7.4, Shotzi's at 9.8K. Obviously, Shotzi's the guy I want to bring up here. I know the price is up there. I think it's interesting that he might be avoided on the slate because they're the biggest favorites of the day. But I don't know if that's necessarily if you should avoid him because he really is the do-it-all guy in this team. He averages the most hardpoint hill time. He's the guy that plants the bomb in S&D. He has the most caps in Dom. He didn't have the best tournament last week or whenever it was a couple weekends ago, a 1.01 KD, but still, This is the guy that has the most upside. I mean, even his overall KD isn't the best, but he can put up huge scores because he's the guy that does all the OBJ work, and when he's slaying, yeah, the upside is enormous with Shotzzy. So I like him. I think the ownership will be low on this slate because people just look at the odds. They'll think it's a good chance at 3-0, which is definitely a risk, right? It's the risk-reward factor. Do you want to take a shot there, or do you want to play maybe a more safe lineup? I'm okay taking a shot there. Again, I kind of already gave you guys my thoughts. I'm just going to play the best players in the slate and not worry about the 3-0 because I think every game has a chance to be a 3-0 sweep. Other players I do want to mention, who could 8K, I think looks pretty decent. He had the best tournament last time they played, a 1.08 KD. He's a very aggressive player. Again, you can see he has the most overall kills compared to everyone else on his team at 2,057. Everyone else under 2,000. So he's the guy that's in the most gunfights. I do want to mention, though, that the new meta is most teams use 3 ARs. So the submachine gun players might struggle a bit. Hook's a submachine gun player. So that does worry me a little bit. Illy coming in at 7.4K. He's been in relatively decent form. Now, I did only have 0.94 KD that last tournament, but he's a guy that has flash upside. He's a really, really good S&D player. Don't know if I would get to him, but still just thought I would bring him up. So that's really it there for the first game. Let's move on now to London versus Seattle. So, London minus 300 favorites. This is the game that's projected to stay the closest. Let's talk about the player that stands out once again for me. It feels like Draftkings did a very lazy job in their prices. It kind of feels like no one really moved from the last tournament. Like Wuskin was at 7.8K last tournament. He's at 7.8K again. Don't know why they didn't move him up. Clearly, he's the top guy on this roster, and clearly he's a really good play for his price. 1.29 KD overall last tournament, a 1.24 overall for the season. Yeah, he's the guy that is really just going to slay out. Now, compared to some of the other guys in his team, he's not a guy that's in the most gunfights, right? But still, he's going to have a really good KD most of the time, right? If you look at versus Scraps and Dylan, who've been on this roster the whole year. Wuskin coming at 1681 overall kills, so they're both at over 1,700. Doesn't worry me a whole lot, right, when the price is that low and the KD most of the time is going to be really good. So I really do like Wuskin. If I was going to play someone else on this team, it would be Scraps. He had a decent tournament last time, coming in at 1.04 KD. 8K, I think that's just, a direct pivot for GPPs, right? Wuskin is going to be popular. He's going to be, in my opinion, very popular for Friday. So if you want a direct pivot, you could look to Scraps, who's going to be probably a tenth of the ownership as Wuskin. But, still, I wouldn't be super shocked if Scraps outperformed Wuskin. So that's your pivot there in GPPs if you want to get different. On the Seattle side, again, it's pretty clear who stands out here. It's Octane at 10K. I know that's an expensive price point, but he's just a really good player on a really bad team. Kind of good for DFS, right? Because where the production's coming from this team. It's Octane. He had a 1.14 KD last tournament. That's actually pretty bad for Octane, considering he has a 1.26 overall KD. Yeah, I know the underdogs, that doesn't worry me. I really, really like Octane here. He's a guy that, if this game goes 4 maps, he can put up a huge score. So I do really like Octane, even at 10K. I think he's going to be popular, but it's for good reason. Now, I'm not really interested, honestly, in anyone else in this team. They were all below 1 KD last tournament. I mean, the prices look okay, but I just think there's better options, so I don't think I would consider anyone else, really. I think it's Octane, and that's it for me. On the New York side, so there's some interesting plays here, definitely. When you have cheap price points like Accuracy at 6.8, Attach at 7K, Temp at 7.2, and Zuma at 6.6K, yeah, that looks really, really good. Now, I know they're minus 500 favorites, right? So there's a decent chance they win 3-0. But the one good thing here is the LA Guerrillas are a really good, if not the best search and destroy team. That is when underdogs play in a series, that the first S&D game or the second game in the rotation is the game that they have the best chance to win. And again, the Guerrillas are a really, really good S&D team. So, that makes you feel a little bit better about targeting New York because there's a decent chance the Guerrillas can at least win that S&D to avoid the 3-0. But first, let's start with Mac, right? So Mac melts at 9K. I think for his price, he looks the best out of all those top guys, right? You have Octane at 10, Shotzi is a 9.8, Luca, who I'm not considering a 9.4, Awakening at 9.6, Slasher 9.2. Mac, of those guys, he stands out like the best play, right? And again, there's risk for sure. There's a risk that they win 3-0. But again, I already talked about my approach here. I'm just gonna play the players I think are the best plays. So I really like Mac there at his price. He's like Shots. Is a do-it-all guy. He's gonna get in it. He's has the most average hill time for hardpoint. He's the plant guy in SND. He has the most caps in domination, well, maybe just behind accuracy, but still, you can tell he is a guy that does a lot of the OBJ work as well as slaying, a 1.22 KD. I think he's personally the best player right now in Call of Duty. So love Mac for his price. Again, he's my favorite of those guys, and you're getting him at a discount too. So love Mac melts. The other plays here in New York, though, look pretty decent. The downside of these guys is they're a little bit more balanced besides Mac, right? Zuma coming in at 0.99 KD, Temp 1.03, Attach 1.09, Accuracy 1.04. They're all over 1 KD last tournament. I do want to mention Zuma. Now, he has the worst KD, but you can tell he's the guy that he's the most aggressive player on this team, right? If you look at his kills compared to everyone else, over 2,000. Everyone else is 1,900, 1,800. So Zuma's a guy that's going to be in the most gunfights. So that does kind of interest me. Now, again, the submachine gun, the new meta, is a slight concern, but, New York won last tournament, so I'm not, that doesn't worry me too much. Yeah, I think Zuma looks interesting. I think you can make an argument for anyone. Now, Attach, again, he has the best KD. So he's probably the guy that's going to get the next most ownership. I like him too. Really, I think you can make an argument for anyone on New York. I think they make for some good value options, really. Accuracy, Attach, Temp, Zuma, all look good for value. So I would be, definitely considering those guys as value options. Them, as well as a guy like Wuskin, looks really good for value. So that's kind of where I'm looking at for value plays. And the LA Gorilla side, they're, again, plus 320 dogs. Not really interested in anyone here unless you want to go a game stack and hope this game goes 5 games and the other games, blow out. Blastful has been the best. He was the best last. Well, was it? Yeah, Blastful was the best last weekend there, 1.17 KD. He's got a 1.09 overall KD, 8.4K. It makes it a little bit tricky for me to really get excited about him. Again, unless you're trying to game stack, because there's just players around this price or for a little bit more that I much prefer. On the Optic Gaming side, right, they're coming in at plus 250 dogs. They have 2 substitute players coming in. So this is the big question mark here. I think, for GPPs, you could consider a guy like Hollow, a guy like Draza for value. I assume they're going to be pretty cheap. And again, we've seen some of the sub players, like Mac, like Awakening, be, top players in this league. So I wouldn't necessarily rule those guys out, right? If they're really cheap price points, I wouldn't hate taking a shot. Now, know what you're getting into, right? We have no data on them. They're coming in from the AM League. I don't know anything about these guys, so there's a huge risk. But, like I said, they're really cheap price points. I wouldn't hate taking a shot there. So, interested to see if DraftKings even updates their price or even gives them a price. But again, do not play Dashi. Do not play Chino. They are not on the roster currently. Yeah, you can tell Optic really struggled last tournament, right? Everyone was below 0.9 KD. Slasher coming in at 9.2, I think makes for an interesting contrarian option. When he's playing well, he's a guy that does have pretty big upside, right? He's a 1.13 overall KD. This team in general has been really struggling. They're going up against a really hot Florida team. So I can't make an argument there for Slasher for cash, but for a GPP contrarian option, you could look to him as a guy that's going to be low owned. And if those 2 sub players are better than Dashi and Chino and they make Optic better, then, yeah, I could see Slasher being in the winning lineup in GPPs. But again, it's a very risky play. Kenny and TJ or Cuervo, I don't think I don't know. I don't think I would consider anyone outside of Slasher. Again, that's more of just a contrarian option. Lastly, we have Florida, who has won the last 2 tournaments they've played in. They have been absolutely on fire. So first, let's talk about Frosty. I have no interest there. Even at 6K, I just don't want to get to him. Not a guy that's going to do a whole lot slaying department. Sure, he's really cheap, but there's better value options, in my opinion. The other 4 guys I think are in play here, though. You have Havoc at 8.4, Skies 8.2, Pharaoh 7.8, Awakening 9.6. So let's start with Awakening first, the most expensive player here. He had a 1.24 that last tournament. He's been in really, really good form. Obviously, since he was the new addition to the roster. I do like Awakening. I think he goes a bit lower owned on this slate because Skies is a guy that I think is going to garner a lot of ownership. A lot at 8.2K. And unless you're doing a game stack, you know, I would say not a lot of people like playing two players from the same team. So I think for that reason alone, Awakening is going to be lower owned. But he's up there, right? He's with Shotzi's. He's with Octane. Again, Mac. Even though I like Mac the most of those guys, he's up there with guys you gotta like at the top. Now, again, Skies is a guy that I think is going to be very, very popular. One of the most popular, if not the most popular. I mean, I consider him a value play at 8.2K. I guess more mid-range, but he had a 1.43 KD that last tournament. He has a 1.26 overall. Florida's been in great form. So, yeah, Skies really stands out there. But I think, interesting pivots off Skies are right above him with Havoc and right below him with Pharaoh. Havoc's a guy that is a very, very aggressive player. Now, again, we haven't got to see Florida since the new meta. So, those submachine gun players like Havoc, like Pharaoh, that is a slight concern, but I think they're interesting pivots there in GPPs. So now let's switch back to the Draftkings site so we can talk about some team options. And I think clearly there's one team that stands out here. Let's go to the team spot. So, it's the New York Subliners at 1.4K. They're the second cheapest team, even though they're huge favorites against the Gorillas. I love New York. I think that's the team you play in cash. I think that's even the team you play in GBPs. Now, sure, they're going to be high owned. If you want to take that in consideration, hope they get upset and sink a lot of people's lineups, then yeah, you can go somewhere else. But that's where I'm going, New York. I think they look like the best team for sure for their price. London at 1.6 looks decent too, but I would much prefer. I have more confidence in New York there. Paris, I'll avoid. Optic Gaming, I'll avoid. Dallas is at 2K or 2.2. I think they're certainly in play too. Again, they're the biggest favorites. It's just I like New York for $800 less. And then Florida's all the way at the top at 2.8. Those would be the three teams I consider: New York, Dallas, Florida. But definitely New York is my favorite team there at 1.4K. And then lastly, again, I'll talk about roster construction. People always ask me, what's your preferred builds for cash for GPPs? My answer is always, it depends on the slate. Now, again, we have 4 games where all 4 have a decent chance to go 3-0. So, say if 3 games go 3-0 and 1 goes all 5, then obviously you're going to want a game stack in that game that goes all 5 maps. But if all 4 games go 4 or 5 maps, then you can have a mix and match. So it depends on the slate. There's definitely some riskier plays because of the good chance of a 3-0, but it really just depends how all the other games work out. I think that's going to do it for today's video, guys. So if you have been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate if you leave a like button on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell. If you listen to this on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star rating and review would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again, guys. Hope you guys all have a good day. I'll be back for another video to break down Saturday's slate for Call of Duty. So I will see you guys then.